yardstick by which they're measuring talent these days or success.
Unfortunately,
Well, you were in a great company with singer-songwriters along with like Marshall Crenshaw and Suzanne Vega and stuff like that. I mean, were you part of? Was there a little scene for that?
Well, there was a kind of scene, but we weren't allowed in. You know what I mean?
Because you're noisy.
No. I mean, what happened is that we were in New York City, basing ourselves largely out of New Jersey. We used to say we were straddling the Hudson with 1 foot in Jersey and 1 foot in New York City. And a lot of these people had already made it. Crenshaw had a record deal probably for 4 years before her first album came out. He was already on to his third album.
Yeah.
Suzanne had her first big A&M album. And
she sat in with you guys, on especially for you.
Yeah, but she did that as a favor to me because we worked together in an office.
Really?
You don't know this story?
No.
No, Suzanne is a great gal and a very kind person. But before either of us had record deals, we worked together in Madison Square Garden. It was a company that sold computer typesetting equipment, and she had been roommates with the girl I was living with at the time. They all knew each other from this little scene based around a club in New York called Folk City, where Bob Dylan got signed from. Yeah. It was called Gertie's Folk City. So anyway, when I moved into this apartment with this girl, Jan, there were Suzanne Vega posters all over. They were homemade posters. And I was curious about who this was. So one day, and one of the things that undid that relationship was I never had money. I was a struggling musician. And my girlfriend said, you have to work, you know what I mean? You got to carry your end, you know? And I realized that. So I got a job working for and with Suzanne at this company that sold computer typesetting equipment. And one day she came in and she played me a tape, and she goes, I think A&M Records is going to sign me. I listened to it, and I don't know I can't remember if I was knocked out by it or not, but I remember being competitive and jealous and saying, and being sort of petty and thinking to myself, if she gets a deal, I'm going to get signed to Warner Brothers tomorrow, you know? But she has a lot of talent. She deserved the deal. But the odd thing was, and what are the odds on two people that worked in the same office together getting major record deals and becoming successful in that field?
Awesome.
It's very strange. And she,
I didn't know where that connection was.
Yeah,
I do. That's great.
She kind of, I guess she felt bad because her boss at the time was a failed musician, and he found out that I was a musician, and he didn't want to hire musicians.
After that.
He made her fire me. And I think she did the guest slot on her record as a favor to me, a personal favor. And
it's a beautiful song.
Well, we didn't want to exploit her, so I remember one time Enigma put a sticker on there that said featuring Suzanne Vega, and we made them take it off. Mm. You know what I mean? Because it was not an honorable thing to do.
Well, and Marshall being credited as Jerome.
Well, that was his choice.
Okay.
That was Marshall being funny.
All right.
They're thinking he was being funny. We said, how do you want to be billed? Because, again, we didn't want to exploit him. Mm. I said, I just call it Jerome. It's probably like Bo Diddley, bring it to Jerome.
Yeah, sure.
Or something like that. I don't know what it is. But I always liked the idea. We were never shy about bringing guest artists onto the records. Mm-hmm. And also, I always had a bit of a head for marketing, too. And I thought that if the work stood on its own, it would only be enhanced by the presence of other great artists like, Belinda Carlisle, who's a great pop singer.
Mm-hmm. We have the 45 up there.
Yeah.
Bootleg?
No, I got that from you. You guys sell your own bootleg, so I guess that means
bootleg over there.
It's an official bootleg.
I guess it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advertise it, though. I don't.
But there was actually up there last time I saw you at the State.
I don't remember anything about it.
Okay.
So
Never mind.
We were talking before about the way things have changed, like this sort of talk show, the casual aspect of it, where you actually talk and exchange ideas and so almost free associate. It's gone from our culture. And I grew up coming home, you'd watch Dark Shadows on TV with Barnabas Collins, kind of watch cartoons. And every day you'd tune into Mike Douglas because he had always something interesting. Bobby Vinton, the Polish Prince, would be the co-host. He always had a co-host. And
John Davidson.
I found it amazing that John Lennon and Yoko Ono
we were talking about that earlier.
They thought enough of him. And he would always broach even the most difficult and controversial subject with some of the crazier guests, like people like Angela Davis and stuff like that, people who are like radical counterculture figures would guest on his show as a platform for putting their ideas toward middle America. And he always handled everything with real grace and dignity, and he was always respectful of his guests, and he didn't try to make it about him. Do you know what I mean? And that's a problem. It shouldn't always be. The way that the talk show hosts these days, or what do you call those shows now? What are they called?
Oh, you mean
crap.
reality
The
shows?
Leno and those things.
Bad TV.
Well, it's more
Predictable.
about them being funny all the time. And
Right.
It's like one-upping the guest.
Well, it's the same with radio. It's like, when did DJs who used to know music and pick music and play music that they liked
right.
Get replaced by
Stop.
egotistical
Well,
By
they got
on-air
They got
personalities
replaced by consultants that
and
I
machinery.
mean, see, that's the problem. That's why we have no more Motown. We have
Right.
no more Stax Volt. We have no more Brill Building sound. Well, well, hi.
Bob.
I'm not taking it.
Yeah,
I gotta
you're not
take
taking it.
Excuse me, Pat.
All right.
Honey, we're on the air. Are you on the way?
Gallon of milk, loaf of bread.
Yeah.
I'll call you back.
Milk,
Bye-bye.
eggs, cheese.
The point that
They're
I
on the
was,
way.
the point that I was trying to make was that regional sounds and radio programmed by individuals who hear a song and say, you know what, that's a hit. I'm going to play it. I don't care what you think. This is a hit. I mean, nobody wanted to play the Beatles, and apparently some fan in the D.C. area called this station or wrote to them, and she's very famous in her own right now, and they began to play, and it caught on. But there was the Brill Building out of New York. Lieber and Stoller wrote a lot of stuff out of L.A. as well. Of course, there was Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, that whole California surf sound. We had Detroit, Motown.
Dozier, Holland, Dozier.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Carole King and
you had the New Orleans sound, so we don't have that anymore. We've got this homogenized,
You got
Dribble.
L.A., Nashville, New York.
New York.
little bit. Nashville is even, I don't know. I don't. It's supposed to be the songwriters' town, and I love going down there because it's the only town where it's just head to toe music. There's no other industry down there, but I don't see, unfortunately, a wealth of quality songwriting going on down there. I think that they're all caught up in that system, and they're just looking to churn out these hits.
Yeah, which is
Guys
a
with
shame
big
because
white
they've got
cowboy hats.
some incredible players.
Yeah, no,
But-
they've got incredible writers too, but I think they're hamstringed by the fact that the only type of songs that are being bought and recorded are of a certain nature, and it's an insult to people. It's really dumbed down. I mean, give me a song like "I'll Be Back" by the Beatles from Beatles '65.
Yeah,
give,
which is my
give-
favorite. But
Yeah, well, that's the new album. In many ways, our version of Meet the Beatles, Meet the Smithereens, as described in the liner notes, it's in a sense one of the holy grails of Beatledom, in that it disappeared for 20 years. It wasn't around because Capitol deleted, first vinyl switched over to CD, and they deleted all the American versions for nearly 20 years, 2 generations or whatever. So you couldn't buy Meet the Beatles. You could buy a vinyl copy, but you had no record player to play it on. So
yeah, and then it was like the mono mix or the stereo mix, and it's like, and it just didn't,
But this is arguably a better version. Meet the Beatles, the American Capitol version. I enjoyed it more than With the Beatles. A lot of the purists say, well, with the Beatles, the British version is the way that the Beatles wanted you to hear it. I don't know about that. I mean, like 8 out of 14 songs or something like that were covers.
I don't think that they had a whole lot to do with putting the albums together. They
No, I
just
don't think
went
so
in,
either.
cut a bunch of stuff, and
I think it was George Martin and those people.
and they picked what was going to be the single and what was going to be
But as Bruce Spicer, noted Beatle historian, says in the liner notes to Meet the Smithereens, he says, in the end, what would you rather hear on an album? I Want to Hold Your Hand or Devil in Her Heart? The cover by the Donays. I mean, there's, which is great, but it's not I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Right.
So this album was a real labor of love for us, and just kind of stumbled upon the idea. We had done a Beatles fest in Louisville, Kentucky, called Abbey Road on the River. You remember that?
Yes.
And we were asked to just perform an entire set's worth of Beatle material, done